Good afternoon, everybody. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on Gadigal land and acknowledge elders both past and present and emerging. It is important to recognise that wherever you are also on Aboriginal land, and I would like to pay my respects to all Aboriginal people, past, present and emerging. Well, thank you for being with us this afternoon for another session on Zoom. It's wonderful to see so many names on the screen, and I can certainly say I am looking forward to seeing you all in person, hopefully sooner than later when the restrictions ease. So today you'll be hearing from Chris in relation to school organisation for the coming weeks, sport and learning engagement reports. Nigel will be touching on the latest updates on reporting, and Karen will provide some ideas about supporting your child returning to school full time. So as you would be aware, all of our students will be returning to school on Monday, the 25th of May. I would like to thank all of you for your efforts in supporting your child to learn from home. It is certainly a very different world we're in at the moment, and I know it has had a huge impact on people's lives, whether it be in relation to job security, in terms of general well-being, but also the need to adjust to life or the world of self-isolation. But I'd like to thank you sincerely for the great work you have done as you encourage and motivate your child through this. I have to say, I think our teachers have done an amazing job to be online during every lesson on the Microsoft platform to avoid really any confusion for students and providing that feedback, which is so crucial. However, nothing beats that face-to-face contact, I have to say. Now, today is about providing an update on what it's going to be like over the next coming weeks, and to let you know about the systems put in place to ensure a safe environment for students and teachers. But first of all, a few key points. Students will be following their regular timetable starting on Monday. And we are aware that it's going to be a bit of an adjustment for students to get back to the routine school 5 days a week. Karen Witherden is going to explore that area in just a little bit more detail. We're also going to consider how we can best support our students in the coming weeks, as I mentioned. And what we'd like to do is offer a after-school learning Monday, Wednesday and Friday after school from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. with teachers assisting students if they'd like to catch up on their work. So what we'd really like to do is get your feedback this afternoon. So if you think that would be a great idea, please send us a message online, just a quick yes or no, so we can make arrangements accordingly. Now, just a few more points before I hand over to Chris. Please remember that all students need to wear their full school uniform. We have a fantastic uniform and we also have lots of options for winter. Now, I was hoping to tell you this afternoon that the tracksuit pants are ready, but unfortunately there is a delay in production. But I'll certainly let you know over the coming fortnight really about when they'll actually be available to purchase. The ensembles have been a tricky area. We were hoping to start them in 2 weeks' time, but unfortunately we do probably have to wait on further advice about that. And unfortunately our dance ensemble will have to be delayed because we actually use an external facilitator. Now, in terms of laptops, it's really important that our students bring back the laptops and chargers back to school on Monday, and hopefully those laptops will be fully charged and will follow the same procedures by leaving those at school as we did pre-COVID-19. And another final note, our student leadership program will recommence at this term with our new teacher, Mr. Jeffrey Parry-Ewing, who has taken on the role of student leadership coordinator. So that's enough for me just for the moment, so I'll hand over to Chris for some further information.
All right. Thank you, Robin, and a lovely evening to our community. Thank you for checking in with us. Just a couple of key items in regards to what Robin has spoken about, sport and some of our hygiene protocols, as well as the engagement report. But just starting with sport, we really sort of looked at the best way to be able to conduct physical activity while still abiding by the parameters that we had to abide by. And that's where the Premier Sporting Challenge came into place. Now, that's going to be something that still continues on till the end of the second term holidays. However, we're now currently also in the unique position to be able to engage with our council and see what opportunities we have in terms of facilities and use of facilities to actually run Tuesday sport for all students. The zone, in terms of sporting zone for grade sport and different competitions, We are going to busily be planning for as soon as we get the go-ahead that inter-school sports will be allowed to commence again. So what we're doing is making sure that we get ahead of that. So as soon as we do get the go-ahead, we are ready to go. So there may be times when your children come home and say, well, this is a sport that I'm looking at doing. The reason is because we're trying to make sure that we are ready to go as soon as we get the go-ahead in regards to that, which hopefully shouldn't be too far away. External providers and venues, that's something that we are going to have to align with their protocols and what they've got in place, and obviously work with them when they do reopen. So that affects things such as recreation sports, where we had bowling and we had rock climbing and we had the University of Sydney that ran the multi-sports. That there too, we will just have to wait and seek advice as to when they are ready to start operating again. And as soon as that is the case, that will be also made available to our students. So we spoke about hygiene protocols too. I just want to really send out a big kudos to all our students who really have started to adopt and understand the importance of what every person can play, the role that they can play in terms of making sure that they are safe as well as others. So they're very familiar now with our hygiene stations. Those hygiene stations were manned for the first week to be able to give students an idea of what it is that you need to do with those stations. Now that essentially most of our students have returned, we'll be able to deliver what the protocols are around there on site for students. But the idea is that we will have an opportunity for students to enter either via the top area in where the main bridge is to the office, or use the lower ground area that comes through Prince Alfred Park. So there are two options, so we can stagger both entries and exits, and we will communicate a little bit more our guidelines around that later on. In terms of sharing food, obviously that and water, that is something that we are strongly discouraging in students, but every student does play that role. So it is important to have that open conversation with your child in preparing for full face-to-face lessons and teaching at school. Please make sure that you actually go through this. And I know that a lot of students this afternoon were saying that they would also join in the Zoom with their parents, which is fantastic. But that is something that is really important, and every person plays that critical role in it. Water bottles, will have water bottle stations to fill up. Our bubblers will not be in use because we would prefer that the students use the beautiful bottles that Inner Sydney High School have provided them to be able to access water. So those stations are down in the lower ground area, and students are familiar with that. In terms of the physical distancing, we are really fortunate in terms of the space and the facilities that we do have. So a lot of our timetable and classes are going to be run in the open learning spaces where we do have, say, for example, double classrooms, which could accommodate up to 60 students and only have one class in there. So where we are very fortunate, we're also going to ask that the students do then play their part in terms of physically distancing from each other as best as they can. In terms of activities during break times, there will be some activities that will be allowed, so some particular games that students can do during break times, and that will be disseminated to the students once they are on site. And finally, I guess it just comes down to the collective efforts of our families and our students in terms of making sure that every person plays their role, so collectively we can all be safe and make sure that we sort of proceed forward as healthy as possible. And just finally, just in regards to engagement report, really had a wonderful opportunity to speak to so many of the families and such rich conversations around progress in terms of engagement. I really want to acknowledge all the parents that have made a big effort, not only to connect to the reports through Parent Portal, the Central Parent Portal app, and I know that a lot of the SAS staff downstairs have been helping, and if you do need a little bit of help getting onto the Parent Portal, please call the school office. They were more than happy to help and have had a great success rate. We're at 100% at the moment, so we ironed out a few of those last ones and we're ready to go. So anyone else that would like to connect, because what we will be doing is also sending through our engagement reports for weeks 3 and 4. And I just want to sort of take this opportunity to say that it really is a piece of raw data. Where normally a teacher would sit in a classroom and be able to use some of the data and the evidence as well as what they're seeing engaging in the lesson, what we have is an opportunity to present this data to where their learning context is. And for the majority of our students, that is taking place at home or in a remote learning environment. So it's really important as part of that to unpack that data, just to make sure that you take the time to sit down with your child and have that open conversation, identify areas of growth, and then you have the opportunity to contact the school. And we have also made contact with our students to see how we can put extra supports in place. Obviously, Robin's mentioned the Learning Hub that was taking place on Tuesdays. Now in this environment is going to take place of an afternoon, Monday, Wednesday and Friday. We also have our prep club starting up again with Miss Witherden, who will be running that there. So that's another fantastic opportunity where students can be given that additional support in a very, warm environment, and making sure that they are ready to go in terms of their momentum building up to face-to-face teaching. So that sort of covers those 3 points. And obviously, if you do have any questions about any of those points, please put them in the chat and we'll get to them hopefully. Thank you, Robin.
Over to Nigel with that reporting.
Hi everyone, and again, please excuse me if I look off to the side. It seems like it's been a long while since we've talked about that we were still waiting on a response from the department, but indeed it's only been a few weeks. Nonetheless, since our last communication, we have heard back from the Department of Education, and the delay really has been, as some of you may know, kind of nationwide policy change that needed to occur in the political sphere. I mean, nonetheless, the kind of end product of that is that the advice from the department is that the regular 5-point grading scale, which is commonly called the A to E grading scale, which you may have heard of, does not need to be, or has been waived for this first reporting period in the cycle for 2020. That's the first main point. And the second main point is that reporting cycle has actually been extended until the 30th of August 2020. So those are the two big kind of policy changes that have resulted from this COVID-19 pandemic, and that's the official advice that we've gotten through. With that, it's important to also note that this change is only applying to this first cycle of reports, and the expectation from the department and from the education bodies is that the end of year reports will look as regular as in previous years and go back to the normal policy standards. Now, as we mentioned, I think in the first time we discussed this earlier this term, Inner Sydney High School is actually in a very good position to exceed the minimum standards of this policy change. So moving forward, we actually can use this as a real great opportunity to leverage some of the timing and policy changes to really involve the community, you guys watching the Zoom now, in terms of what you value and what you would like to see within semester reports, whether they be half yearly or yearly reports, what you value in things like student, teacher, parent conferences, and what you value and would like to see us kind of report to you. So moving forward, we will continue to communicate as we do about the changes that we'll be making in relation to this, but I'll just reiterate the point that Inner Sydney High School is in a very, very good position to kind of exceed that standard of not having to do a 5-point grade scale. And even that deadline of 30th of August, we're in quite a good position to exceed that as well, or be a little bit quicker with that. But things are still in the drawing board, as I hope you can appreciate, but we will definitely be communicating that to you. And again, I want to reiterate the point that we're looking to get you guys involved in that process, because we really value your input in it, because at the end of the day, you guys are the end users of the product we are producing. That's it for me. That's it from me for now. I'll have a look if there are any questions about that, and we can come back to that. But I will pass over to Karen now, who will talk about some other things with students returning back to school.
Hi everybody, it's lovely to be here and to be talking a little bit about the students returning back, and I just want to share with you how very excited we are to be back as a community at Inner Sydney High School and to be journeying with the students in our new space. It's an interesting time. Things are very different than they've been, and we're hearing some of that from some of the children who have been saying things like, I'm a little bit anxious, everything's been so different across the year. I'm excited, but I'm also nervous. There's been a lot of change. And I think that's something that's really important that we do talk about in terms of positive education, is the idea of emotion. And that what positive emotion really embraces is this idea that all emotions are okay. And that what we really need to do is to not become attached to them, but rather to acknowledge that it's okay to feel lots of different emotions. It's a tough time. There's been lots of change. These are children who are starting their high school journey and then have had to deal with so much. In terms of that as a school, we're trying to give the children the tools and strategies in order to cope with that. And that's something we've really been working very hard on. We've been doing a lot of teacher PL around that and about how we might actually encourage the students and give them the tools and strategies in order to deal with it. One of the important things that's indicated in a lot of the research is that it's okay to acknowledge that there's a whole host of emotions we're feeling and that that's okay. And that's something as educators, but also as parents and carers, is we can do, is to validate that children might be feeling many different things at this time. Another tool or strategy that might be utilised is the idea of a happy hit. So what a happy hit is it's gathering a whole host of things that bring joy to us. So it might be that one of my happy hits is a certain song that evokes a particular time or a particular place or a particular memory. And so if I'm feeling stressed, I might access my happy hit. The other thing I do at home is I have a few photos, and each of those photos have a deep resonance with me as a time where I knew joy, and that was a wonderful thing. So it might be, for example, a day on the beach, or it might be when we gather together as a family. And so if I'm starting to feel a little of the things that are quite common emotions at this time, I go and I get one of my happy hits out. It might be that each member of a friendship group or a family write a little note to each other, or something that might, a saying or something from a book or a movie that might bring joy, or even a funny clip that you share. All of these happy hits, whatever they might be for you and your family, might be something you utilise in order to access and to deal with some of those emotions you might be feeling. If anybody needs any more support around any of these things, we'll be relaying them out in our newsletter and things like that, but please also feel free to come and ask what they might be.
Well, thank you, Karen. I found that very insightful, and I think everyone participating in this presentation can acknowledge that I have some great people around me, and we are so fortunate for the staff that we have here at Inner Sydney High School. What we're going to do now for the time remaining is just have a look at some of your questions, and I think there was one thing I wanted to mention, and that's about uniform. Please keep in mind as we enter the winter months, if any of you actually do need any support there financially, please don't hesitate just to contact the school to the Inner Sydney High School email address, and we're happy to provide that support for you. We have a very responsive uniform supplier, and it is disappointing about those tracksuit pants, but please make sure that there are many options in terms of our winter uniform, and as I said before, we do have a fabulous uniform, to keep that in mind. The other question, I believe, now going back to our learning hubs, I can see resoundingly that that's a positive thing, so we'll actually be holding those next week from after school till about 4 p.m, so keep that in mind in terms of your travel arrangements. Have we talked about travel?
Travel, yeah, it's sort of something that I know has been, I guess, from departments, not quite as clear as what we would hope. I think what we could probably assume from it is that we might need to add just that little bit of extra travel time based on how people respond to it in terms of coming back on site, and obviously as the city starts to sort of build in capacity of people returning to work. So I think that that's probably really important. Obviously, just want to acknowledge too the hard work that parents and carers have done in terms of getting their child to school on time, which has really been fantastic. So obviously, if there is a method that is working there for you, the data for us shows that yes, everyone is managing at the moment, but just probably allowing that little bit of extra time just in case there is a bit of an uptake in terms of public transport.
Okay. Look, there's another question there too, and that was about the school ties. Great plans before COVID-19. There is a bit of a surprise with our school ties, which I don't want to really give the surprise away, but they are sorted, if you can understand what I'm saying. So what we were going to do is have a pretty special presentation for our students that may include a school tie and another item. So what we're going to do is just try and work out how we can actually make that happen. It might be in a staged approach with our students, but it would be really lovely for our parents to be involved in that process. So stay tuned. I'll keep you posted that we do have a surprise in place for you in regards to the ties.
There's another question there about, yes, will teachers be supervising the learning hub? Will they be available to answer questions the kids may have?
Oh, sorry, yes, I was about to answer that one. So yes, teachers will be available at the Learning Hub, and that's the idea. It could be an opportunity just to catch up on some of the work and just to ask those questions that perhaps wasn't possible in our online world. And the other thing to remember, for our students would remember we had prep club at lunchtime, and Karen Witherden is very keen to start that up again, aren't you, Karen?
Yes, I certainly am.
So that'll be on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday at lunchtimes as well. So what we'll do is really make ourselves available just to talk about that transition back into full-time schooling, which is going to be a challenge for our students, and we do acknowledge that. Sorry, Nigel, anything else from you?
No, I mean, if you do have any questions, we have a little bit more time. Please feel free to post it in the chat. But I just wanted to say, as the person who reads the chat the most, I just want to acknowledge the thanks that you've given us, and I really, you guys don't get to see it, but it really does mean something to us when we see the support that you've given us, and we're quite buoyed by your enthusiasm and how much you're willing to engage with us. And I just wanted to mention that because there are always a lot of positive messages that come through the Zoom chat, and I don't think it is set to everyone else seeing it. So I just wanted to acknowledge that because we are buoyed by those positive thoughts and vibes that you sent to us. So I just wanted to thank you guys for posting that, because it's really appreciated.
Yes, just to add to that, it seems quite strange to thank you for thanking us, but as Nigel said, we very much appreciate it. In terms of our extracurricular activities, I think what we'll do is settle our students in for next week, and then we'll keep you updated about those extracurricular activities such as rowing.
All right, there's another question about will the rowing still be happening at school?
I just answered that.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Another thank you. So once again, appreciate that.
A list of clubs and hubs available on your online portal calendar. I mean, from my understanding, we communicate that quite well on our newsletter, but that's something we can definitely take on notice as to make that more explicit. A bit of a spoiler, in the newsletter coming out tomorrow, we've just established a Maths Explorers Club, which I'm quite excited about. So we'll communicate that out in the newsletter as well. So you can always check those in the meantime while we take that on notice and finalise that.
Very good point from Cheryl. Our P&C president has actually posted that the P&C meeting will be held, I think, virtually, I'm assuming, Cheryl, and they'll be held in week 7. So no doubt the P&C will email all parents in relation to the P&C meeting.
And if we're talking about spoiler alerts, I might just give one in regards to spoiler alerts, in regards to just the students that did access the Learning Hub on last Tuesday. And it was really, really rich in terms of the opportunity for students to catch up on work. I personally have had already a look at the engagement reports and seen incredible growth and connection for students in terms of making sure that even online remote learning, they're still able to do so. So thank you to all the parents that really, and carers that really took the time to say, this is something that we would love to sort of support and address. And the numbers were well over what we expected at a school. And we had staff from every faculty going around to the students during that time and offering that individualised support and that opportunity to ask that question one-on-one.
Well, it looks like that's a bit of a wrap with the questions, unless there are anything final. But Robin, maybe I'll just pass over you to you to close us up.
Once again, thank you again for all of your support. As I said at the beginning, we are all very excited to see our students back again. There were lots of smiles this week and last week to see our students again, and we are very much looking forward to maintaining that traction we had in term 1, and we are keeping our eye on the tower. It is so impressive, our students, and we are all so fortunate. And I wish you all the very best, as I said, through these very difficult times. And farewell for now, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.